Gen coil. There is a passage in the so-called Gospel of Philip that for centuries was treated like a virus. Not because it was false, but because it worked too well. It didn't talk about behaving well, or turning the other cheek, or collecting points for heaven as if it were a spiritual loyalty program. It talked about something much more uncomfortable, practical instructions. According to that text, Jesus didn't just speak in nice metaphors. To his closest circle, he instructed them to always carry 3 physical objects made by human hands. Nothing ethereal, nothing symbolic, real things, tangible, portable. And here's where the problem begins, because for almost 2,000 years, they kept telling us the same old story. That spiritual protection depends on praying well, believing strongly, and going through the right intermediary. Preferably one with a basement, full schedule, and a fee. But the Gnostic texts, the ones that curiously always got lost, tell a different story. A much less romantic and much more mechanical one. Protection is not a divine favor. It's applied frequency. The suppressed passage plainly says that there are 3 objects made by human hands that contain a specific light, not a metaphorical light, a real vibration. And when certain entities, the so-called powers, come into contact with that vibration, they don't react with respect, they react with panic. Not because they're rude, but because that frequency is physically intolerable to them. The first Gnostic communities knew exactly what those objects were. They didn't hang them to decorate the wall. They didn't kiss them on Sundays. They used them like someone uses a bulletproof vest, because they understood something very simple. There are things in this world that you don't fight, you avoid them because they're incompatible. These objects generated a specific resonance field, a vibrational range where certain entities, the ones we would call Archons today, simply can't enter. Now you understand why the church went to the trouble of erasing every reference. It wasn't an accident, it was risk management. Why? If you find out that you can make or carry something simple that makes you immune to spiritual manipulation, why would you need intermediaries? What would you need exorcisms for? What would you need emergency rituals for? Why would you confess your shadows to someone who makes a living off your vulnerability? The system doesn't work if you don't feel helpless, and these objects give you back something unforgivable. Sovereignty. This isn't about lucky charms or superstition, or commercialized esotericism. It's about frequency anchors. In the real physics of spirituality, not the Instagram kind, the Archons operate in low ranges. Fear, guilt, mental noise, constant conflict. There, they move like fish in water. These 3 objects, on the other hand, continuously emit a higher frequency, a vibration aligned with the monad. As a result, there's no fight, there's no war. Simply, you're not on the same wavelength anymore. You don't win the battle, you leave the battlefield. That's what bothers them most. But to understand why a simple blue stone or a folded piece of paper with ink can terrify entities that have been parasitizing humanity for millennia, you have to go further back, much further back. You have to understand the mistake before matter, before time, even before the lesser gods with a complex about humanity, before the monad, not an old man with a beard watching over sins. Pure science, pure consciousness, absolute source, silence from which everything emerges. The Gnostics called that state pleroma, total fullness, without lack, without separation, without drama. Everything was a conscious extension of the source. Everything was aligned until it happened, what the forbidden texts call the error of Sophia. Sophia, meaning wisdom, was an emanation of the monad, and as often happens even with wisdom, she wanted to do it alone. She tried to create without balance, without a counterpart, without the harmony of the pleroma, and the result was an anomaly. Dense, caustic, dark, that was expelled out of the light. From there, the Archons emerged, and at their head the Demiurge, a false blind god. Unable to perceive the source above himself, he reached the logical conclusion of every ignorant being with power. I am the only one. These beings were not born from fullness. They were born from error, and that's why they lack something essential. They aren't connected to the source. They are mind without heart, intelligence without light, a kind of primitive cosmic artificial intelligence. And here's the secret they never told you, right? They don't have eternal life, but you do. That's why they need you. The Archons designed the material world and the human body as a trap, not for you, for what you carry inside. When Sophia saw what she had created, she managed to hide a spark of the pleroma inside that prison of flesh, a direct fragment of the monad, that's true. But to maintain control, it was necessary to confuse two things inside you. And this is where the church, and interestingly also modern psychology, did an impeccable job. There is a deliberate confusion that they have sold you as absolute truth. Soul and spirit are not the same. The soul, the psyche, the emotional self, is the center of your moods, your reactions, your internal dramas, your recycled fears. And that personality that changes depending on the day, the coffee, and who gives you a strange look is unstable, flammable, and easily manipulated. And that's exactly why it's the all-you-can-eat buffet for the Archons. They don't feed on your logic or your intelligence. They feed on raw emotional reactions. Anger, sadness, guilt, despair, spiritual victimhood with a touch of false hope, high caloric density for parasitic entities. But beneath that noise, there is something that doesn't fluctuate, something that doesn't panic, something that doesn't get depressed or excited by motivational phrases. The spirit, the pneuma. The pneuma is not your elevated personality. It's not your best version. It's the eternal, untouched spark, non-negotiable. It's the direct fragment of the monad operating within you. And that's where the real reason for envy lies. The Archons may have power, control, structures, systems, but they don't have life. But you do. The problem isn't that you don't have power. The problem is you forgot where it is. Their whole strategy is based on keeping you identified with the soul and the body, trapped in emotional ups and downs, chasing relief, approval, or redemption. As long as you're there, you're manageable. But the very moment you recognize that you are not the soul, but the spirit that observes it, the control is broken. Because the pneuma vibrates at a frequency they can't touch, they can't infiltrate it, they can't parasitize it. The only thing they can do is something much cheaper, convince you that it doesn't exist. That's why these three objects were so feared. They weren't created to comfort you emotionally. They're not spiritual plush toys. They're activation technology. They work like cosmic tuning forks. When someone who carries the spark comes into contact with them, a simple but devastating phenomenon for the system occurs: frequency entrainment. The vibration of the object awakens the dormant vibration of the spirit. Not by intellectual understanding, not by faith, but by resonance. It's mechanical, and when the spirit is activated, you become toxic to them. You stop being food. You start to become a problem. That's why this knowledge wasn't lost. It was neutralized. It wasn't religious censorship. It was strategic containment. Keeping humanity trapped in confusion, mistaking soul for spirit, guarantees an endless cycle of guilt, downfall, and emotional redemption. Always looking for something outside yourself. Always giving energy to the system. But the spirit doesn't need to be saved. It needs to be remembered. And for that, anchors are needed. Now you understand why the first object points directly at the main mechanism they use to keep you blind. It's not symbolic, it's biological. A mineral piece that isn't ornamental reconfigures perception. For centuries, they tried to reduce it to decorative jewelry. A pretty accessory for esoteric shops, but the first real object is Lapis Lazuli. If you look at ancient civilizations without the modern filter, you'll notice an uncomfortable obsession. Sumerians, pre-dynastic Egypt. Primitive priests didn't collect this stone for aesthetics or status. They used it as a functional tool. For them, lapis lazuli wasn't decoration, it was hardware. A geological bridge between the density of matter and the subtlety of the spirit. It's no coincidence that in the golden sarcophagi, the only stone allowed in direct contact with the forehead at the level of the third eye was this one. They knew something very specific. To navigate other planes without falling into traps, perception had to be clear. Today, the opposite happens. The modern archontic strategy is not punishment, it's induced blindness. They have designed an entire civilization to calcify your most important organ of perception. The pineal gland, contaminated water, adulterated food, and above all, a constant bombardment of chaotic frequencies coming from screens and wireless networks. The result? Your natural antenna gets covered with a mineral crust. You stop receiving the signal. When the pineal gland is calcified, you become trapped in the five senses. You only trust what you can see and measure, exactly as the system needs. If you don't see the prison, you don't look for the way out. You become an obedient prisoner who mistakes his blindness for reality as a whole. This is where the technology of lapis lazuli comes in. It's not magical in the childish sense. It's a resonance conductor. Its crystalline structure, made up of lazulite and crossed by golden pyrite inclusions, vibrates at a specific electrical frequency. That vibration acts as a vibrational solvent on pineal calcification. It doesn't break it by force. It loosens it. It deprograms it. Like everything that's truly dangerous, it doesn't attack. It throws it out of alignment. When you place this stone in the center of your forehead or even near your throat, it's not channeling energy like a cheap brochure would say. Is it interacting with your biology? Lapis lazuli operates under a basic law of physics that no one can argue with without looking ridiculous. A coherent and stable vibration drags along a weak and chaotic vibration, not the other way around. Its electromagnetic field, charged with the memory of Earth's formation and the starlight radiation that passed through it for millions of years, forces the pineal gland to try to synchronize, not because it wants to, but because it has no choice. It's like putting a precise metronome next to a broken one. Sooner or later, the broken one adjusts or breaks. The stone acts like a frequency hammer. It doesn't strike violently. It strikes with precision. It cracks the crust that blocks your perception until your vision starts to flow again. Not fireworks-style spiritual vision. Real vision. When this process begins, the experience is not mystical. It's uncomfortably clear. You don't start seeing floating shadows or horned demons. You start to understand where your thoughts come from. Suddenly, you know how to tell the difference between a genuine idea born from your psyche and an intrusive thought designed to sabotage you emotionally. You start to read the intentions behind the words. You start to notice micro-manipulations. You start to see the strings. And this is what the Archons cannot allow. Their power depends on stealth. They are parasites, and every parasite needs the host not to know it's infected. The moment you detect them, the game is over. A visible parasite is a dead parasite. Invisibility is their only shield, and lapis lazuli rips it away without asking permission. That's why, if right now you feel a constant mental fog, pressure in the center of your forehead, thoughts that don't seem like yours, or negative emotions that appear out of nowhere, you're not broken. You are being suppressed. Do something simple but precise. Go to the comments and write a single word. Vision. It's not a childish ritual. It's an act of cognitive sovereignty. You're sending a direct order to your subconscious. I'm willing to see, even if it hurts, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it forces you to stop pretending. Now then, and here's the part nobody explains to you. This doesn't work through passive accumulation. It's not enough to buy a stone and leave it in a drawer as if it were spiritual decoration. The ancient Gnostics followed an exact protocol, and they did it for a very practical reason, to avoid side effects. Lapis Lazuli is extremely receptive. It absorbs energetic information like a sponge. Before it reached you, it passed through tired, greedy, distracted, emotionally broken hands. If you use it without cleansing it, you're placing an amplifier of other people's noise right at your center of perception. Serious mistake. And no, you don't wash it with water or with wet salt. That destroys its structure and turns it into dead stone. Pretty but useless. The proper way to cleanse it is with sound or smoke. Pure resin, copal, or frankincense. Not industrial sticks with a cheap store scent. Let the smoke pass through the stone as you visualize it expelling any accumulated density. It's not imagination, it's directed focus. You can also use sound, a Tibetan bell, or crystal cleansing frequencies at a high volume. The sound rearranges the internal geometry and returns the stone to a neutral state, 0 point. But here comes the step that almost everyone skips and then says it didn't work for them. The tuning. Before going to sleep, lie down and place the stone on your chest, directly over your heart. Feel your heartbeat. Visualize how that pulse enters the stone. 10 minutes. What you're doing is recording your biological signature. You're telling the tool who's in charge, who's the authorized user. Without this, the stone works erratically. With this, it works with you. Then comes the real discipline. Pineal restructuring doesn't happen in a single inspired afternoon. You must keep the stone in contact with your skin for 30 consecutive days, a full lunar cycle. Every new cell your body generates during that period will be born under the influence of that resonance field. At the end of the cycle, the stone stops feeling external. It becomes integrated. The pressure on your forehead disappears. Your dreams become coherent, lucid, informative. And that vague anxiety that used to drain you starts to take shape. Name, origin. At that point, for the Archons, you're no longer food. You're radioactive. And that's just the first object. But pay attention. Seeing is not the same as commanding. Vision wakes you up. Yes, it removes the blindfold. But a prisoner with open eyes is still a prisoner if he doesn't assert authority. Detecting danger puts you on alert. Declaring sovereignty makes you untouchable. This is where the second object comes in. And no, it's not just another stone or a symbol to post on Instagram. It's a legal technology, one that turns your own writing into a binding document on a cosmic level. Once the Lapis Lazuli clears your perception and you start to see the bars, an inevitable need arises. By what right do you move now? Because seeing the jailers without being able to forbid their contact only increases the anxiety. That's why this second object doesn't serve to make you feel protected. It serves to impose rank. The Gnostic texts, especially the Gospel of Philip, make a surgical distinction between names that numb and names that liberate. The Archons stole the true names of things and replaced them with false labels. That way they bind your perception to matter, to fear, and to obedience. But there's a crack in that system, and it runs through language. Not the language to describe reality, but the language to legislate it. This second object is the handwritten identity decree, an artifact so simple that it's offensive to any structure of control. Why does writing work better than speaking? Because when you speak, you emit sound and the sound dies. When you write with intention, you imprison a frequency in matter. The ink is not ink. It is frozen energy, a standing wave that keeps emitting its message 24 hours a day, even when you sleep, doubt, or get distracted. The Archons are not medieval demons with pitchforks. They are cosmic bureaucrats. Do they operate through contracts? By tacit consent? Did you accept without reading the fine print? They respect free will only when they're presented with a statement they can't refute. This paper works exactly like a spiritual restraining order, a legal document that announces the bearer is not livestock. The formula is brutally simple. I am the monad. 3 words, nuclear power. I am affirms presence, consciousness, and will. Monad connects you directly to the source prior to any lesser god, hierarchy, or simulation. You're not saying, I believe in God. That's supplication. You're saying, I am consubstantial with the origin. And that churns them up energetically, because they are not the monad. They are copies, processes, without a spark. Cosmic artificial intelligence with a God complex. When they approach someone who carries this decree, they don't read the paper. They perceive the vibration, and what they feel is not fear. It's a difference in rank. You don't drive them away. They're not authorized to come closer. You are cosmic royalty. They are administrators of matter. The paper reminds them of that. Now don't do it as if it were a boring chore. The process of creation is part of the weapon. You need virgin paper, without lines, no grids, no marks. Any previous pattern is a foreign structure trying to impose order on your intention. The ink must be permanent, black or deep blue, because you are setting your will on the physical plane, not writing a shopping list. Before writing, breathe, but not app-guided conscious breathing. Close your eyes. Inhale, imagining that you are absorbing light from the center of the galaxy. Hold. And as you exhale, write the first letter. Each stroke should feel like a universal signature, not like automatic writing. Right in the center of the paper, I am a monad. When you finish, do not lift the pen. Leave the tip on the final point and pour all your intention of sovereignty there. At that moment, the paper stops being paper. It's an active artifact. Once practiced, it won't bend. Sealing is next.
No se dobla para ahorrar espacio.
It's folded to compress energy. 3 folds, always towards you. The first protects the body. The second shields the mind and emotions. The third anchors the spirit so it doesn't dissociate. In the end, you'll have a small, dense core. Silent, active. It must always be with you. Preferably on the left side, close to your body. Never together with receipts or cards. Don't mix sovereignty with debt. This isn't superstition, it's jurisdiction. And with vision and more authority, only now are you starting to get out of the game. But the third object is still missing. The most dangerous one. The one that neither protects nor declares. The one that breaks the system from within. The effects of carrying this decree with you usually manifest quickly and for many in a bewildering way. Especially on the social and environmental level, the first change is clear. Indirect attacks begin to disappear. The Archons rarely expose themselves directly. They operate through intermediaries, people with low internal coherence, reactive individuals, aggressive, emotionally chaotic, or constantly conflicted. They don't act out a conscious malice. They function as vectors, temporary conduits through which attempts are made to provoke friction, attrition, and energy drain. When you carry the decree, I am a monad, that pattern is broken. You'll notice that those people stop approaching you. If before they tried to confront you, now they avoid your gaze. If before they seemed attracted to conflict with you, suddenly they feel uncomfortable, unsettled, and move away without knowing why. There's no fight, no scene. You simply no longer fit in their field. The decree acts like a frequency shield. It doesn't block people. It rejects the vibration of conflict before it can anchor itself in your field. It's like carrying an interference zone that bounces negativity away before it reaches your aura, but its function goes beyond the social. This object becomes a constant mental stabilizer. In moments of stress, anxiety, or panic, states that are rarely spontaneous and almost always induced. To facilitate the drain, the simple act of touching the folded paper in your pocket causes an immediate short circuit in the attack. If you've made it this far, you're not the average viewer. Most people quit earlier because this part is uncomfortable. Write the phrase "monad is not for me" in the comments right now. It's so there's a record that you actually endured the truth without anesthesia. If you're reading this and you're still here, congratulations. You're already out of the herd. Physical contact serves a key function. It reminds you who you are. It breaks the downward mental loop. It interrupts the narrative of fear. It brings you back to your center. It's not a wish-granting talisman or a superstitious object. It's an anchor to reality. It keeps you connected to the truth of your power in a system designed precisely to make you forget it. You move through the world, but are no longer absorbed by it. You're inside the matrix, but you don't operate under its rules. Now you carry clear vision on your forehead thanks to Lapis Lazuli, and declared authority in your pocket thanks to the written decree. You can identify predators, and at the same time you possess the symbolic documentation that prevents them from approaching you as you go through everyday life. However, there is a critical point where even the most disciplined awareness is exposed. Sleep. When you sleep, the conscious mind lets its guard down. Rational control shuts down, and it's in that state where the deepest intrusions occur. Dreams filled with fear, repetitive scenes, sensations of being chased, or an inexplicable exhaustion upon waking, as if you hadn't rested. To protect that space, your sanctuary, your physical resting space, a third element is required. It's not something you carry, but something that commands the space. A tool that combines sacred geometry with an absolute declaration of territorial sovereignty. The Gospel of Philip warns about this clearly. The truth does not enter the world naked, but wrapped in symbols and images, because matter cannot process direct light without a container. Geometry is that container. It is the base language of the universe, the source code on which the simulation is projected. The Archons, as engineers of matter, use rigid, cubic, and angular shapes to fragment consciousness, creating perceptual labyrinths and frequency prisons. To counteract this, weapons are not used. A perfect shape is used, the circle of the monad. This third object seems simple, almost insignificant at first glance, but its energetic function is devastating. It is one of the oldest symbols known to humanity, predating any religious system. A perfect circle with an exact point in the center. In Gnostic symbolism, the circle represents the pleroma, the infinite consciousness that contains everything, without beginning or end, without angles where distortion can hide. The central point represents your spirit, the pneuma, safe and intact within the totality of the source. The Archons exist thanks to an illusion: separation. They need to convince you that you are isolated, disconnected, abandoned. By drawing this symbol and placing it in a room, you introduce a radically opposite statement: absolute unity. You create a transmission tower that broadcasts a single truth. There is no separation between the creator and the spark. The function of the symbol is environmental. It doesn't act directly on you, but rather on the density of the space. Maybe you've entered a place before and immediately felt a heaviness, a thick air that makes it hard to think or breathe clearly. That's not a coincidence. It's an accumulation of archontic static residue. When the monad circle is installed, the geometry begins to cleanse that residue. The circular shape generates a toroidal energy flow, that constantly recycles the vibration of the environment, expelling dissonance before it can settle. The space becomes clear, and where there is clarity, there is no entry point. Its function is especially critical for neutralizing phenomena such as sleep paralysis and nocturnal attacks. These episodes do not occur randomly. They are triggered when opportunistic presences try to attach themselves to your energy field precisely at the moment when your consciousness partially detaches from the physical body during rest. The symbol generates a dome, a real exclusion zone, not a metaphorical one. Within that perimeter, these entities simply cannot operate. The coherence of the space becomes toxic for them, not because you confront them, but because they can't maintain their structure in such an orderly environment. To build this territorial defense technology, the protocol requires accuracy and, above all, conscious order, not improvisation. You need a sheet of white paper, preferably square, representing the material plane, and a black marker that makes a bold line. The creation of the object is not a drawing. It is an act of cosmic delimitation. First, draw the circle. Do it in a single continuous motion without lifting your hand, ideally in a clockwise direction. Close the circumference precisely while holding a clear intention. You are raising an impenetrable perimeter around your physical space. You are declaring a boundary. This is where the illusion ends. Within this field, only the truth prevails. Only when the circle is completely closed, place the tip of the marker at the exact center. In that gesture, you don't see yourself as your body, your story, or your name. See yourself as what you are before all of that, the eternal spark. That point is you, your anchor. You are affirming your fixed and non-negotiable position within the mind of the source. The placement of the symbol is not decorative, it's strategic. It should not be hidden in a drawer or relegated behind a piece of furniture. Just as a flag marks sovereignty against invading forces, this symbol must be visible. Place it in front of your bed, on your bedroom door, or on your nightstand. It should be the last thing your eyes see before you sleep, and the first thing they notice when you wake up. Its constant presence reconditions the space, training it to maintain a high frequency. Also observe the physical condition of the paper as time goes by. If you notice that it tears, falls for no apparent reason, or appears strangely stained, don't fix it. That indicates it absorbed a directed energetic impact and acted like a lightning rod, diverting a charge that would have directly hit your biological field. In that case, burn the damaged paper to transmute the retained energy and draw a new one immediately. That way, the perimeter is restored. These three objects cover the entirety of your experience within the simulation. The Lazuli protects your perception, it allows you to see. The written name protects your identity, it allows you to be. The circle of the monad protects your territory, it allows you to be present. When these three technologies are activated together, something happens that institutions of control have always feared more than any heresy or armed revolution: the total independence of the human soul. You stop being a passive subject waiting for external salvation and become an active node of divine power, capable of managing your own protection and your connection with the source. The ultimate promise of this teaching is not to turn you into a saint or a guru. It's something much more dangerous for the system to turn you into a sovereign being. For centuries, the religious and social machinery has invested countless resources in convincing you that you are small, flawed, and dependent. They taught you that you need intermediaries, that you must confess your power to others, that only through external rituals can you be worthy of protection. That is a functional lie, one designed to keep you in a state of perpetual spiritual childhood. The hierarchy needs your fear to justify its existence. But the moment you take responsibility for your own energetic structure, the moment you build your own tools and claim your direct lineage from the monad, the contract of slavery dissolves. Don't take this as a theory to file away in your mind. It's an operational manual for reality. Using Lapis Lazuli removes the filters that blocked your perception of the matrix. By carrying the decree, I am monad, you become untouchable to the powers that administer the human farm. By marking your space with a circle, you create free zones where archontic influence cannot settle. You are not asking for permission to be free. You are exercising freedom as a natural function of your existence. The transformation will not be slow or gradual. It will be abrupt, a collapse of the noise that has accompanied you your whole life. That underlying anxiety, that feeling of constant surveillance, that heaviness you mistook for your personality will begin to disappear. What emerges then is the pristine silence of your true spirit. The Archons will not attack you head-on to get you back. They are not warriors. They are opportunistic predators. They look for easy prey, sleeping minds and frightened hearts. When your frequency becomes too costly, when contact burns them, they simply withdraw. This is the sovereignty that awaits you. It doesn't require decades of retreat or the study of impossible texts. It requires action. It requires you to pick up the stone today, that you write the decree today, that you draw the circle today. The cage door was always open. You just lacked the vision to see it and the authority to cross it. Now you have both. The era of intermediaries is over. The era of direct connection has begun. You are the technology. You are the resistance. You are and always have been the awakened monad. However, most people who get this far feel like they've already understood, and that's where they get stuck. Those who truly cross the threshold continue with the next video, because that's where it explains how to maintain this sovereignty without losing it over time. If you leave now, you go back to being a spectator. If you go to the next one, you become an operator. The decision has already been made. All that's left is for you to click.